PGA Tour makes its way from Cromwell, Connecticut, up to Moline for the John Deere Classic. We have our picks ready for you. Xander Schauffele finally back in the winner's circle. There's no more NBA. There's no more NHL. Is it time to turn our attention to football? And the markets, they're on a run, but are they coming back down? Should we go gold or Bitcoin, Apple or Disney? We're going to tell you what you need to know and make you a little money. Breaking even. Here we go. How we doing? 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. That's Guy Adami. He's celebrating something. And there's Coach Jonathan Coachman. How we doing, fellas? Everybody ready for this?
Celebrating life.
Russell Westbrook just exercised his $47.6 million option to not be able to dribble for the Los Angeles Lakers. All is good with the world. Ned, let's go.
Are you going to take your option for breaking even? What is that? At least $48 million, right?
$4.8 to stay here on breaking even. Yes, that's where I'm at.
we pay the big money. We pay the big money. Come on, that's why we're making you money.
Just I know we got to get into the show. Did you say $47.6 million?
It's the back end of what was a good deal, and this is what happens, Guy, with a lot of these big stars. They fall off a cliff, and then that cliff, like John Wall, $44 million, and John Wall can barely dribble. So some of these guys, and they're making it very difficult for the Lakers to do anything. The Kyrie, all this stuff's going around, but they have a lot of dead money.
It's like a Bobby Bonilla kind of deal. That guy's still getting paid. That's the greatest contract in the history of sports.
It really is.
Incredible. It really is. Well, we got a nice show planned, so let's get right into it. Let's look at our picks, Coach, from the Travelers Championship. Sahith Theegala. Oh my God, this poor kid makes a double bogey on the 72nd hole, and it cost him the tournament. Xander Schauffele finally back in the winner's circle. I can start betting on him again. Here are our picks. How'd we do?
Well, I tell you, Sunday is a perfect example of why betting on golf is so volatile. Why we tell you all the time, you will not make a living doing top fives and top tens, because look at just my picks, for instance. Cantlay was right there going into Sunday, right there, blows up. Brian Harmon had a solid week, T8 plus 750. That doesn't cash, even though he had a great week. We were right on it. So be very careful with your unit size when it comes to betting props, because they can be very difficult to hit.
Well, especially when it comes to an event like the Travelers and looking ahead to John Deere this week. And we kind of touched on it in Mexico. These fields are so wide open. But I could have told you Patrick Cantlay. I watched him. I was up there working for CBS this past weekend. On the range, Sunday morning, wind just basically straight down at the player's back. He goes directly left. It was the weirdest thing you've seen, almost hitting over the other players' heads. And you could tell that he's getting the club stuck underneath. And so he's trying to figure out a way to get the club more on top. The wind blowing this way, that's going to help get his right shoulder. But he was lost. The club stuck underneath. And how he got to where he was in that final pairing, smoke and mirrors. That was a rough final round for Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, it certainly was. But that's one of those tournaments, and now as we spin it forward to the John Deere Classic this week, that you look at and you say, okay, I remember when that guy made a name for himself at the Travelers. It's a weird scenario how they do it, but there's a lot of names, Theegala, Hardy, that we're going to see this week that had really good weeks last week.
And there are little details that make all the difference in who you're going to pick. And I missed one. And that shame on me. I missed one. I should have known. Jordan Spieth put a new driver in the bag. Titleist is unveiling their new heads. Jordan tested it out, and it was no bueno. He wasn't even close to making the cut. Rory McIlroy opens with that 62, and I thought, this is a lock. But, Coach, he ran out of steam. He's tired. That was 4 weeks in a row. He's been the face of the tour, and he was exhausted. It showed up on Friday afternoon.
I think I said that on the show. Did I not? Are we worried about him running out of steam for the weekend? Guy, can you imagine, by the way, if somebody came up to you and said that you've got to play a certain stock or you have to do because they're paying you? That's essentially what a lot of these players do. They sign these big deals, and then they're forced to play something that they would never play.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Do they have any time? In other words, obviously Jordan Spieth signed this deal with Titleist. You guys know more about this than I do, clearly. But I'll ask you this: do they give them a period of time to sort of practice with that club, or basically you're putting it in your bag, and on that first par 5, you're pulling it out, and that's just the way it rolls? Because that seems problematic to me.
Yeah. No, they test them out. They go and test them, and then they decide what they want to do. But Ned can speak to this. It's a big difference from going from the range, Ned, and all of a sudden you're putting a tee in the ground.
And it can work in your favor. Scotty Scheffler, before he made his ridiculous run, first PGA Tour win to becoming number 1 in the world in 42 days. I want you to think about that. In a month and a half, the man went from winning a PGA Tour event to becoming world number 1. He added a new driver. He changed his driver, picked up like 15 yards. Yep. Changed out his 3-wood that he'd been playing since college. And then he changed out his putter. So, boom, it can work for you. But in this case, it was very detrimental for Jordan. And he had been driving the ball pretty well. So we're going to see how that unfolds.
In a related story, I also just got a brand new driver, brand new 3-wood, and a brand new putter. For some reason, I'm not getting the same results as Scotty Scheffler.
Well, hey, Guy, we know that Coach didn't pay for him. We know that those came as freebies. Who hooked you up?
Well, I was going to say, when Coach said he got a brand new driver, I was going to ask him what his name was, because, I mean, that's how Coach rolls.
I got one word for you, Ned. Rogue.
Going rogue. Callaway. But, hey, Guy, to answer your question, yes. For example, I'll just tell you my personal experience. I signed with Callaway when I was playing full-time, and they gave you a grace period. But some players, it's all 14 clubs. Other players, you can have 10, 12 club deals. But this is what happened, in my opinion, with Jon Rahm. He has a 14 club deal, and he has to be in the putter. And right now, the putter is the one missing link in Jon Rahm's game. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful when you take the money. But, of course, Rahm, number 2 in the world, but the putter is the one that's holding him back. Hey, speaking of being held back, before we get up to Moline and the John Deere Classic, we have to talk about LIV. I don't want to talk about it. Tired of talking about it. But we have to talk about it because Brooks Koepka now is reportedly going to be playing on the LIV Tour. Of course, it doesn't count until they hit that first shot. Abraham Answer is going. I'm hearing Joaquin Niemann. And, of course, if Joaquin goes, then you got to think Mito's going to also follow. The first LIV tournament is in the United States now, in Portland. So, Coach, give me your thoughts. This is it's becoming more than a distraction.
I'll be honest with you. We're not going to have to talk about this too much longer because there is a certain trend that is happening. And to the average fan, the lazy take is to go, all these names are going over there. Well, clearly, when you're starting a new tour, you want to go after names. But they're going after names that their games are gone. Look at this list. I don't believe there's one win in the last 12 months on this list. Their names, yes. They're former major champions, yes. But all the players are signing. Matthew Wolff can't even hit his ball straight anymore.
Poor guy. Poor guy. I feel sorry for him.
Right? He's got the yips. So you're getting a name of a guy that can't hit anymore. Bryson, he's just hard to deal with. Brooks. We know Brooks does not care about the PGA Tour events. He has said that out of his own mouth.
Sure
He's
has.
a full-time major champion. We know his body is broken down. So how do you, if you're LIV, go after a guy whose knee is banged up, your hip is bad? He knows he can't compete. And he's not going to tell the world, but this is clear. So he can go get a big payday. And then a lot of the story came out this week that the prize money is going against their signing bonuses. So like Charles Schwartzel won that $4.7 million. Sort of. It went against his signing bonus. So say it was $10 million, they take that 4.7 out of the 10 million. So there's a lot of things that are coming to the surface that, just like I said, just sit back, wait, and a lot of things will trickle down.
Quickly, I mean, I know we got other things to talk about. This sounds to me, and it's probably not a great comparison, but, USFL, when it came on, they throw in a lot of money at a lot of people trying to be that league. And to me, and this is just my opinion, I think it only sort of galvanized and fortified the NFL. So to a certain extent, and I might be 100% wrong with this, but I think this is going to work in the long run to the PGA's benefit.
You are dead on. You're spot on. I literally just said this in one of my big shows that I do every single day. And I said, sometimes you need a kick in the ass. Sometimes you can get complacent. And I'm not saying the PGA Tour was, but when you're a dominant number one, I went through this in the WWE, and we're going through this now. I sent an email full of ideas to the PGA Tour because I want them to be better. I want us to be better. I want where Ned and I work to be better. But everybody should want that. No matter what business it is that you're in, you should want to be better. And I think that's how I'm looking at this. I don't care where the money comes from. I don't care how it's backed. I really don't. I care about the lack of competition. I care about the walking away from playing against the best. If they want to go do that, go do it. But there's not one player, not one, that I'm going to sit there and go, man, I wish he was still back on the PGA Tour. None.
Yeah. And it's the level of competition is going to suffer. It just,
of course,
when you've got that kind of guaranteed money, and I said it a few weeks ago, it's the NBA regular season versus the NBA postseason. People actually play defense. You've got guaranteed money, 3 rounds, no cut, 8 events. Maybe next year LIV does succeed. They have 14 events. You're still not gearing up for it like you are a PGA Tour event, because you still have to make the cut in the PGA Tour event. You have to eat what you kill kind of deal. And just overall, and I think where we're really going to see it is in the majors, where LIV guys show up and get miss the cut, get blown off the course, so to speak.
Yeah.
We'll see.
The last thing I will say is this, because I love this stuff. I really, really do. I love when people are living a non-reality. Sergio Garcia, who is classic LIV golfer, put out a video this morning saying that the tickets to get on site are discounted just for you, the fan at home, so you can come and see us. I'm like, Sergio, you're a giver. You're a man of the people. Event number 2, guys. Event number 2. They're already discounting tickets because nobody's showing up. Event number 2.
And so the problem is I like a bunch of these guys. I got Sergio. I've played with Sergio. I know Sergio. I like Sergio. But that kind of looks at, well, hey, I said this a couple of weeks ago. This reminds me of the WWE when it changed. And remember when Hulk Hogan started wearing all black and started dyeing his beard and looked like a black, a bad guy?
Yes.
Same thing. Phil Mickelson comes out in all black at the U.S. Open. He's got that. I thought, oh my God, this is Hulk Hogan. We've already seen this movie. We've read this book.
And what you don't realize, and you're hitting the nail on the head, for people that don't know the story, back in the 90s, WCW paid a bunch of guys so much money and never asked them to work. That's exactly what this is. So Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, all these names that mostly people that are watching this have never heard of, they got paid $6, $7, $8 million a year and only had to work on Mondays. Never had to show up any other time. It was not sustainable. And this is not sustainable as a business. It's the exact same thing. And Ned, you didn't even realize it was the exact same thing, all the way down to the payments. Exact same thing.
You got to see this in business, Guy. I would think where a bigger company, or not a bigger company, but somebody who thinks they have deeper pockets comes in and starts trying to buy up talent out of other companies. How does it end in the business world?
It's so fascinating you mentioned that, because culture is such an important thing, and one thing you can't do, you can't buy culture. And you can try to buy up assets and stuff, but what are you trying to create? And I think to a certain extent, I understand the logic behind this, but it becomes down to be careful what you wish for. Good example, just in sort of our, not world, but sort of our tangential world. I remember Chris Russo and Mike Francesa had the best radio show in not only New York City, but in the country for years. Look, they didn't get along. I get it, but they had a wonderful show. The chemistry was amazing. Russo decides to leave to take a huge contract at Sirius. You can't begrudge him, but he effectively went into obscurity, and he made that choice, and I'm sure it was great for his family, but just in terms of what he had and what he gave up, what he sacrificed, and subsequently what his legacy is going to be, those things are going to suffer. Now, if money is the factor, I'm not judging anybody here, but all those things need to be considered, because at a certain point, I think somebody said, it was John Rahm, you guys know better than I, somebody gave a really great 45-second, 60-second answer to the question about LIV Golf. Again, he wasn't judging, but he's saying, for me, it's about chasing records. It's about playing against the best and all those things. And I could retire tomorrow with the money that I have. It's not about that. So anyway, it's a pretty interesting take.
Matthew Fitzpatrick is who you're talking about.
Yeah,
but there's also Pearson Cootie, who just won on the Corn Ferry Tour this past weekend. He did an entire article talking about LIV reaching out to him, what they offered, the fact that he had no money in his bank account, and he turned it down. Why, Guy? Why, Ned? Because he always dreamed about playing on the PGA Tour. He always dreamed about that. You can't dream about, I want to make, the money will come with it. And the week after he does the interview, he wins on the Corn Ferry Tour. And now he's in position to play on the PGA Tour next season.
Right. That's right. I mean, he's got a chance at getting his PGA Tour card the old-fashioned way.
Yes.
Remember those ads with Wilford Bromley?
He earned it.
He earned it.
it.
We do it the old-fashioned way. We earn it. Oh my God! Speaking of earning it, we're going to earn some money in the markets. There's a button here. Like us, subscribe to us, help us spread the word about breaking even. You can jump in our comment section. Feel free to ask any questions or make fun of Coach or Guy. Just don't make fun of me.
No,
I'm
make fun of
fragile like that. Let's head up to Moline. Take a look at our picks for the John Deere Classic. I've got a couple that I'm really excited about, Coach.
Yeah, this is a sneaky fun week on the PGA Tour because there's a lot of things at play here. There's still a spot open in the Open Championship, and there's been some incredible stories over the year, guys, about players that weren't expecting to win, like Jordan Spieth, having to go to the State Department to get a passport overnight, all these great things. Bryson DeChambeau winning here, one of his first victories, if not his first. So this is a sneaky cool place. So that's why when you look at the picks this week, you go, But remember, this is where a lot of guys can make hay. So very quickly, Martin Laird, he had a really good week last week. Until Sunday when he shot 72, he's playing great. I love him in the top 20. I love Lucas Glover. He's the defending champion here. So I'm protecting him because I do think he could win. He could really contest for the win, but it's very difficult to defend. So I'll take the top 10. Nick Hardy. This is a guy that a lot of people don't know about, but man, he played great at the U.S. Open. Ned, you were there. He played really good last week as well. He's really coming on. I like him in the top 5, and then I like Sahith Theegala after the heartbreak last week in Cromwell, Connecticut. I think he's got the motivation. He wants that last spot. He's talked about getting into the Open Championship. That's a goal for him. So I like him this week to get it done at plus 2,200.
I love this kid, Sahith Theegala. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of him as the golfer because he's a dude. He's got pieces of his golf swing flying all over the joint, and you don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be exciting. And then I'm a fan of him as the human, just a well-grounded, good guy. Still young, so the only problem with Theegala as your pick is when he had a chance to win early in the year out in Arizona, he didn't get it done. Then the next week he finished like 52nd, and then he missed a couple of cuts in a row. And he's had the same. He finished 3rd somewhere, and then didn't play well, and then missed cut. So my philosophy is the same thing. He's going to finish 42nd this week, and then miss his next cut. I'm just going with what history said.
There's just no heavy hitters this week. There's no heavy hitters that I can look at and say that could be a dominant winner. And
I'm taking big time odds for my winner, William McGirt. There's 2 years he was out with hip surgery, same exact hip surgery that I had that basically ended my career. And he's come back. He played well finally last week. And I think, again, this is a super long shot. I'm playing the odds on this one, but it would be a fantastic emotional story if somehow Willie Dirt McGirt comes out and collects another victory. I mean, it'd be amazing. And what I want is he and his caddy, Kip Henley, who's an old buddy of mine from outside of Chattanooga. When they talk, it's English, but you need a translator because the accent is so thick. I love it. JT Poston, he's starting to roll his rock again. He's got a new driver in the bag, and he's hitting a little bit farther, a little bit straighter, so I like him. Patrick Rogers, I mean, come on. At some point, this guy has got to flash. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the top 5. And then 2 top 20 picks. Lingmerth, who has no status except for like past champions and maybe some career money, but he's playing nicely. When he gets a chance, he's only played in 6 events, I think, this year on the PGA Tour. He's only missed 1 cut. I like David Lingmerth. He's a straight hitter. He's putting the ball well. And then this guy, people don't know about, Chris Gotterup. He's coming out of Oklahoma. He's a young player who's just turned pro. But let me tell you what, this kid hits the golf ball. Rolling out of bed, Coach, his ball speed is almost 200. It's 190 all day. And he's a dude, and he plays with his golf glove Velcroed. I've never seen anybody do that in my life. Just on that alone, well, he's going to finish in the top 20.
He's a dude's dude. There's no doubt about it. And his thighs are about this big,
bigger than Guy Adami's.
Yeah.
No, I have bird like. Let me, Coach. I want to ask Coach a quick gambling question on this one. Again, knowing nothing about this stuff, but so I don't know if this is Bernard McGirt from Imus's show or whatever McGirt to win outright at plus 25,000. But Coach, my question to you is, my sense is, for him to finish in the top 10, the odds are maybe it's, I don't know, plus 10,000 or.
They wouldn't be plus 10,000. They'd be
twice
severely,
as much.
Really, the reason you get this number is because it's so difficult to pick the winner. not a top 5 or a top 10 or a top 20. So you might be able to get him like maybe plus 1,000 or something like that.
So it's not even in the so the plus 25,000 is where you're going to get the juice. Got it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But Guy, you know me, I'm never going to let Ned just slide by with a pick that I don't agree with. And as I look into my crystal ball, what do I see? What do I see? Well, I see that my best bet is Lucas Glover over J.T.
Wow.
Poston. That's right. That's right. No, unbeknownst to you. Unbeknownst to you. That's right. I'm taking the defending champion over the guy that you think is going to finish top 5. Is that what you said? Top 5? Top 5?
Coach. Come on.
Oh,
listen, Lucas Glover. He's going to have a lot of time demands because he's the defending champion. He also has gone away from the forward lean shaft attached to his forearm back to conventional putting. And I think the yips are back. I think the full scale yips are back. Unless he goes back to that other style of putting, I am worried about Lucas Glover.
Coach, real quick, I think what Ned is saying is he'd rather have Danny Glover over Lucas Glover.
Yes.
Half the audience out there right now is going, who's Danny Glover?
Who's Danny Glover?
What's lethal weapon? What is that?
Oh, man. All right.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm going to step back because I know that Guy is chomping at the bit.
I am, but real quick, you have this Steve Stricker hole-in-one.
Yes.
So before I just want to. So assuming he makes the cut, that means he plays for 4 days. I think, if I'm still correct.
That's right.
Probably 4 par 3s.
There are. That's right.
So it means he's got 16 shots. I mean, is this?
Good
where did
math.
you come up with this? Because this seems like a complete flyer by you.
It is a total flyer. It's a sentimental pick. Steve Stricker is playing in what he would always say his 5th major.
Yes.
He just finished second to Padraig Harrington in the Senior United States Open. So why not Steve Stricker make a hole-in-one? Is he going to win? No. Does he make the cut? Maybe. He knows this course well. But he's going to give us one big memory, whether it's a long eagle putt or a hole out for an eagle. I thought, why not a hole-in-one? Those are pretty nice odds. Why not, as Coach says, sprinkle a little something?
And guess what? Unbeknownst to pro sports gamblers, they hate me. They hate my crew. They hate everything we're about. A, because we're the best. But B, because we tell people that betting does not have to be serious. You're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to make picks that are fun. It doesn't have to be so serious with the sunglasses on and the hat on backwards and the 5% bombs of the week. No. You can have fun. And this sprinkle on the hole-in-one. Can you imagine if you hit this guy? Can you imagine if Ned hits this? Oh, my God, $10,000 on a $100 bet.
I like how you were venting. I need to vent quickly as well. All right, because see this flag over right here? Every year in the U.S. Open, I put a couple of flags in the locker room, and I ask the guys to sign them, and then we auction them off at some point for Tennessee Junior Golf so that we can help pay for entry fees throughout the summer for a junior golfer who wouldn't be able to participate otherwise.
Love it.
So I left 2 flags in the locker room. I have them shoelaced together. I know the drill. Put my name, put my email address on the back of them just in case somebody grabs the wrong flag. Here's Tennessee Junior Golf. Please sign. I went to pick them up Monday morning. Gone. Gone. And so I've talked to the locker room attendant twice. I've called the country club twice. Gone. Just poof. So I'm so pissed about this. Yeah. So gone. Somebody has them. It has my name on the back of them with my email address, and I cannot find them. They've gone missing. If you got them,
how bad that story is?
Brutal.
Like if you're going to tell that story, there's got to be and then somebody called me and said they found it.
Nothing.
None of that. Oh,
nothing.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Not cool.
I need to know where those are. And I also need to know about the stock market because right now, roll it.
Show me the money!
Love that.
Give me a little money. All right. There's a lot of different places to go. I want your macro view, though, Coach or Guy, because you've called it. It was down to 3,750. It literally closed 3,750. Now you're calling 4,000, 4,100, and then back down. So my first question is, do you still believe in that call? And then secondly, if that's the case, if things are going to go from 4,000 to 3,200, why not just sell everything
That's fair, Ned. So it's all great points. So embedded in that question is, are you trying to be too tactical or effectively too cute? You're trying to layer on a bet that you probably don't need. And that's fair. But we're also trying to do is help people sort of navigate what's been an extraordinarily difficult market over the last few months, without question. And we got the downdraft. I think we did a decent job there, to your point. That June 14th Federal Reserve meeting, if you recall, on that Wednesday, the market did subsequently rally pretty strong into the close after Jerome Powell finished speaking. What surprised me was the pretty precipitous sell-off we had the next day, that Thursday. That was on the back of, again, not trying to get too wonky, but seemingly out of nowhere, the Swiss National Bank decided they were going to raise interest rates by 50 basis points. That scared a lot of people. But that was a one-day event, and the market subsequently got back on decent footing. So my thought process is this. This week is not only month end, but it's quarter end. We have a holiday shortened week next week. Typically, and I say typically, markets rally into these quarter end situations. Markets typically do okay on these holiday shortened weeks. And I think the lack of news, because we have no earnings, no Fed for the next couple of weeks, I think the market just sort of levitates. I still think we're in a downtrend, pretty significant downtrend. But I do think we can see a move up to 4,100 or so in the interim. What I think is going to happen, and again, not suggesting I'm right, but reading the tea leaves, on or about around July 26th is when Apple reports. And, Apple's been one of those stocks that seemingly has been impervious to any bad news. I happen to think that the quarter is going to be okay, but I think they're going to give some pretty weak guidance. And I think that's going to be the catalyst to take the market the next leg lower. I think it culminates in a move down to 3,200. So I think you make a great point. If you're bearish overall, why wouldn't you just sort of pare down things now? I think you're going to have a couple of weeks where the market does this levitation act before it takes the next leg lower.
So in that case, again, if you are bearish, everything, remember we had that chart a couple of weeks ago where in a bear market, everything goes down. So if you own gold, if you own energy, if you own Disney, Apple, things that we've been talking about now for several weeks, wouldn't it make sense that if the market's going to go from 4,000 to 3,200 in this hypothesis, that everything has to go down with it?
You make a good point. I mean, I think 78% of stocks are correlated to the S&P to a certain extent. We call it sort of a one correlation. But under those circumstances, when things do sort of cascade, everything seems to go in the same direction. So I think you make a great point. It's about, again, I think to a certain extent, it's about trying to be tactical here. And look, a lot of these names have already taken a beating. I mean, if you look at some of these Cathie Wood ARC Innovation names, they're down anywhere from 50 to 80%. And look, doesn't mean they can't go any lower, but a lot of that damage has been done. I think what's happening now, we're sort of in the later stages where some of these generals, Carter Worth talks about it all the time, those are the ones that are sort of the last men, women standing. And I think that's what's going to be taken out. We've seen it to a certain extent in Google. We've seen it to a certain extent in Amazon, Microsoft as well. If you start to get that rollover in Apple, that might be the last one to go. That might be the final piece to this puzzle. So that's the way I'm looking at the world right now. Obviously, every situation is different for an individual. I can't speak to everybody's specific situation. But if you're trying to sort of game this out over the next month or so, that's how I'm looking at the market.
Pete Mitchell in our questions and comments over here wants to know, Guy, are there any stocks right now that are screaming at you to buy them, or any of them that are screaming at you to short them, buy some puts?
Yeah, so great question, Pete. By the way, loved you in the movie, as I've mentioned before. I'll say this.
Hasn't aged today.
Big cap healthcare, the healthcare names have done unbelievably well. Yesterday, Merck made a new all-time high. Eli Lilly, Bristol Myers, all new all-time highs. Amgen, a biotech stock, is flirting with an all-time high. So I think to a certain extent in this environment, not that they're impervious, but I think big cap pharma is going to be a decent place to be because the stories are sound. In terms of stocks that have been beaten up so much, look at Qualcomm, which has basically done a round trip. I don't know if Jacob can pull up that longer term chart, QCOM, but you'll see a stock that had a huge run to the upside into the fall of last year, early this year, subsequently moved lower, and now it's getting back on its footing. Great job by Jason. Johnny on the spot. So if you look at Qualcomm here, a name that tested those recent lows in October, you saw that subsequent bounce. I think we're going to hold here and bounce into earnings mid to late July. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of answering Pete's question. I did a pretty good job there on the fly, by the way, Ned.
You did. You did. You did.
All right, energy, OIH, or I'm looking more towards the XLE now.
Yeah.
It's in that low 70 bracket. Looks like it could have a big bounce. Timeline, though, might be a little longer out than we had originally thought. Talk to me about where we are with energy.
Chart, if we can put ConocoPhillips is a great example, Jacob. If you can pull that up, COP is the symbol there. Just to give you an example of how the rise in these stocks was, slow and steady, lower left, upper right, and then the sell-off, again, to use that word, has been precipitous. I mean, look at that right there. The reason I asked them to put it up, because words don't do it justice. When you see it, you're like, oh my God. So this is a stock that went basically from 125 down to 85 over the course of about 7 trading days. And you say to yourself, wait a second, crude oil didn't move that much. And you're right. I mean, crude did have a move lower, but not nearly to the measure, to the extent that you've seen in the stocks. And what does that mean? I think people are sort of selling first, asking questions later. I think they're worried that maybe this commodity move is not going to continue. And I get it, but I think there's tremendous value here in energy still. I don't think the final chapters have been written by any stretch. And I think crude oil is stubbornly buoyant here. So I know President Biden goes to Saudi Arabia, I believe, on July 13th, hat in hand. We'll see how that works out. But they're throwing everything possible at this market, and it's hanging in there. I think you can buy these energy stocks, understanding full well it has been extraordinarily difficult over the last month or so.
Coach, you're going to Saudi Arabia. Are you going with Biden? You part of that clan?
No. I like smaller private jets. I don't like flying Air Force One, so I will not be accompanying Biden to Saudi Arabia.
All right. Well, we're basically out of time, so let's do it as we always end our show. Floor is yours, guys.
When we finally get sponsorships and stuff and we get critical mass, my one ask of both of you and Jacob is going to be to change that picture. Makes every time I see it, it just so I played baseball obviously as a youth. I think we all probably did at one point. And the game, there's some inherent dangers in the game, one of which is the fact that a pitcher can hit you with a pitched ball. It happens. Sometimes pitchers hit you with a pitch ball. It's also part of the game. But recently, over the last couple of days, we saw a situation between the Mariners of Seattle and the Angels of California, where one Jesse Winker, who plays for the Seattle Mariners, was hit in the thigh by a pitched ball. Somewhat innocuous. I mean, last I looked, there are no vital organs in your thigh, but Jesse thought it was akin to being basically sniped from the stands, and he made a beeline to the bench of the California Angels and effectively took on the entire team, which at a certain level I dig. But I'm exercised by the following. I mean, Jesse, really? You got hit in the thigh. You didn't get hit in the head. There was no head hunting there. He hit you in the thigh. Put your bat down, but dust off your rear end and walk over to first base and take it like both man and a woman would under similar circumstances. The fact that he felt outraged enough to run and take on the entire team. Again, I don't know the backstory there, but there really shouldn't be any backstory, because to me, Coach, I don't know what you feel about this. Get your ass to first base and shut your mouth.
Just shut your mouth and go 90 feet. Let's go.
It was actually a baseball fight, though. It was great. Punches were thrown, tackles. It wasn't just the guys coming in from the bullpen. It was a legit good fight in baseball.
Yeah, there's a really good perspective on IG. Somebody was in the front row and took the video, and the fight comes right at him. Go find that video. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I don't mind a little bit of that in baseball.
Go 90 feet. Shut up.
Best revenge is hitting a home run next time. We're going to try to hit a home run next show. We'll see you next week on Breaking Even.